Okay, let me start off with a roll call.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Motion to excuse Akers, Foster,
Askew.
Askew.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Akers and a second from, I'm sorry, Commissioner Brazen, and a second by Commissioner Moshali. Let's just, all those in favor?
Aye.
Second time.
No worries. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Okay, now moving on to the approval of the agenda.
Through the chair, are there any changes to the agenda? Motion to approve the agenda as written.
Supported.
Okay, motion by Brazen and
Ag Force.
Ag Force, thank
No
you.
worries. Yep.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Let's approve some minutes here. For 3A, consideration of the minutes from the August 16th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. Are there any changes or modifications to this?
I'll support the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, motion by Hagforth and Brazen, second by Brazen. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. 3B, consideration of the minutes from September 20th, the 2023, the Joint City Council and Planning Commission Zoning Ordinance Workshop.
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay.
Support.
Okay, motion by Councilman Polka and second by Hagforth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Time for a call to audience, and this is a time for anyone to address the Planning Commission on any topic not on tonight's agenda. If anyone from the audience is here to speak on an issue not on your agenda, this is your time to do so. And not seeing anyone here besides city staff. No.
Did you get any emails? No? Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to open and close the public call to audience at 6:34 p.m. Now we have one item for a public hearing, and that is the zoning amendment. That's the consideration of the zoning text amendment, section 24-165, medical marijuana facility provisioning center, marijuana retailer and safety compliance facility. So it looks like city staff has a presentation on that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, just a quick introduction. This is a housekeeping item as proposed by the city attorney. So essentially, the medical or the marijuana landscape has changed over the years in Michigan. We currently allow 6 provisioning centers, or what I'll call 6 medical marijuana facilities, and 6 recreational marijuana facilities. They're the same, so each 6 of those had a medical and a recreational component to them.
Sorry, through the chair, for clarification, only 5 provisioning centers were approved by council, not 6.
5 provisioning, 6 medical?
Correct.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. 5 medical, 6.
1 safety compliance.
5 and 5.
No, there's 6. We currently have 6 recreational, but we only approved 5 medical.
Correct, I clarify that. Yes, 6 recreational, 5 marijuana, 1 marijuana safety compliance facility.
Correct.
So with that said, one of the co-facilities that is both a recreational and medical has not followed through with their medical marijuana license this year. They've rescinded it, or they've given it back to the city, which technically would, if we leave the code the same, have the city open to advertising for another provisioning center. The city attorney and staff have worked together that once you release a permit, it doesn't go back on the open market to create another medical or another marijuana facility, in this case medical. So we're recommending to change the code so that if you give up your license, the total number of licenses reduces. So at this point, we would have, it looks like 6 retailers, 4 provisioning centers, which are the retailers, 1 safety compliance center is, I think, what our final numbers would be right now. So it's just a housekeeping item because it didn't clarify that before in the code. So taken from page 2, if a provisioning center obtains a marijuana retailer permit and then seeks to surrender or cancel its provisioning center permit, the number of authorized provisioning centers allowed in the city shall be reduced by that number.
So is the intent to phase out the provisioning centers?
I don't think that's an intent. It's just changed dramatically. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Kyle and I were going through it. I think the state maybe gave a number that something like sales, obviously of medical marijuana, when only medical marijuana was allowed, was 100%. Once recreational came on, they've dramatically dropped off. Something, memory serves me, to like 8%. So most people are purchasing recreational marijuana. We're not trying to phase them out, but if people rescind them or give them back, surrender them, we don't want to provide another one. I really think the landscape's changed so much that no one could financially make a medical standalone facility work.
Through the chair, is the intent that, let's say that an entire provisioning center and recreational center closes and those 2 permits are open, would that be available then?
No, I think, I would have to ask the city attorney that specific one. The language is written, says if a provisioning center obtains a marijuana retailer permit and then seeks to surrender or cancel its provisioning center permit, the number of authorized provisioning centers allowed in the city shall be reduced by that number.
Right, understanding that, so you don't want to have, if you've got a provisioning center and a recreational center already out there and it rescinds its provisioning, you still got that entity out there. I'm saying if that entire entity goes away, would that then be available?
That would be a specific question for the city attorney, but how I read this is only if you give up that does it surrender. If, say, one went out of business, that was a provisioning, medical and recreational, I think both of those permits would go back on the open market to be solicited to open up a new facility.
So looking at the, I'm just trying to get the definition straight because can recreational facilities also sell medical product? Can they, because I know.
If they have the provisional.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of the recreational facilities who have not sought out the provisional and they just only have recreational.
Correct, through the chair. We currently have, as we stated earlier, the 5 provisional and the 6 recreational. All 5 provisional are associated with 5 of the retail. We don't have any unique medical provisional licenses. They're all associated with a recreational.
Right, so now there'll be 6 recreational and 4.
That's my
Correct.
understanding, yeah.
Correct. And no one could apply for that provisioning center because the total number of allowed is reduced by that number.
And so let's say that we open up the ordinance to allow for a few more, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but let's say theoretically we open up the MXD, let's say, to allow for there to be certain, to allow for other, to allow for marijuana retailers in that zone. Would they only be allowed to only go recreational because the provisioning number has been parsed down?
No. So if you expanded the zone districts and allowed it everywhere in the city,
Yeah.
That's great, it's allowed, but per this ordinance, we only allow so many, and whatever this zone district, whatever this document says. So the council would have to, if, I don't know what the marijuana rules are, but if the marijuana specific rules say it can only be in industrial, allowing it in other uses or zone districts by the use chart won't change the fact that this is another layer. So you can open it up, but if it's in here that it restricts it, it's not going to. If it doesn't matter either because the number is the number and they're locked in right now.
Through the
I
chair.
don't know what the marijuana ordinance.
Through the chair, if I may. So like the way I kind of interpret it was, again, all the medical is attached to recreational. It doesn't stop someone who would be purchasing medical to go to a recreational spot. So what this ensures is that the recreational shops who all have these provisioning licenses can't either just give them up or sell them to someone who's like, oh, I'm gonna open up a medical shop, and then ultimately then you're left with, instead of 6, now you're potentially having 10 because all these people are selling their provisioning licenses because they say, I don't need it because I have a retail license.
Essentially correct. I mean, they can't sell them, but they could say, I'm going to give up mine quickly, you run to the city if there's not a lottery system, and then you take this one. I think in the end it doesn't matter, because given how even the recreational marijuana business is going right now, which is just oversaturated, no one's probably going to limit themselves to just medical, which is still a sliver of the total. So I don't think anybody would be seeking it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it was, like, from what I understand, at least this used to be the case, it might not be anymore, but certain people who have the medical licenses like to go to there's a different line in those facilities for the medical and then for the provision, for the retail, and I want to make sure that, because those licenses have to, I think though that business has to be conducted separately from what I understand, and I'm not sure if they come with different price tags because there might be different tax implications of that, and if people who actually need to use the medical marijuana for medical purposes aren't able to go into a retail shop and get their because all of a sudden we don't have any provisioning licenses left because people have given them up or we're not renewing them or for whatever reason, then those people who actually need the medical marijuana for medical purposes wouldn't be able to go to those any new retail outlets that open up because those would only be catering to the recreational side of things.
So I add a couple things to that. I don't know what Michigan is. I know where I came from, you're right, there were separate areas for medical and recreational. There's a different tax, there's a lower tax for medical. I assume it's the same here.
Yes.
If we see a problem that the retail marijuana is consistently giving up their medical, it happens again and again, then I think we'll revisit that.
Okay.
But if they're giving it up, they're giving it up for a reason, right? Because they're not going to not want to make money. And if all of them give it up because it's not making money, we can allow a provisioning center, a medical one. But if no one wants to open up one, there's a problem there. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But if we see this happening, I think we can revisit it.
Okay, if we see, then.
Yeah, through the chair. Even if they choose not to give up the provisioning license, it doesn't mean that they have to offer those products. So you could have the remaining 4 businesses in the city having the provisioning licenses, but decide, you know what, they're not going to supply the product anymore. Now, they'll still have to pay the state for the license for the renewal, but I don't know how much that is. I'm assuming it's thousands of dollars, so that's probably why they're giving it up, is because they don't have the business and it's too costly to keep the license.
Yeah, probably accounting and the oversight. I don't know if the state has a rule. I assume the state has a rule, that if you're not using it, they're going to take it away at some point. I don't know if our ordinance speaks to it, but generally speaking, I would think that they could not supply it. As long as they're paying their permit, they're good. But I would think there's also some kind of rule in place to say if you're not using it, it's being taken away. I don't know that.
And I know that at some point, I know that at least certain facilities have changed names. Park that seems to have changed names. And I'm not sure if that what was put under new ownership, but if a retail outlet that sells to another company, let's say that they sell to a different company, would they forfeit the provisioning license because they could not transfer that license over to, if you have a retail provisioning license and they wouldn't be able to transfer over to the sale of a of their facility?
I didn't follow that one, I'm sorry.
So what, if I may, what you're asking is, if I'm gonna say Liv, I'm not endorsing. If Liv were to sell their business and sell it to a different owner and they decide they want to call it Live now. If, as the new owners, are they able to take over both the recreational and the medical licensing as part of that, or does this ordinance change limit that ability to bring over the medical as part of the sale of the business?
Subject to all the rules of transferring, I don't know what those are with the state and the city, if they were able to purchase the medical and recreational, then they would be purchasing both if it was in good standing. If a company gave away their medical and then 6 months later sold it to another company who wanted to get the medical back, so this says once you give it up, it's gone. So we'd have to revisit that if they wanted to get it back again.
Okay, and I think I'm just trying to figure out what problem this is solving, and this is trying to, because if no one wants the medical license anymore, because there's not the demand for it, why does it matter if there's an extra one floating around?
Well, God, I hope I can say this. So I think the concern would be if we had this not free, but open provisioning license and a business came in and wanted to take that provisioning license and open up their business. At some point, they're probably going to petition the city to say, well, we need a retail license. We need you to give us another retail license, and put pressure to now create a 7th retail business.
So it creates a loophole for the kind of get in.
Yeah.
I got you.
Okay. So just, yeah, I don't have a problem. I'm just trying to figure out what problem we're trying to solve by changing this ordinance.
I don't know if we're trying to solve one. I think we're trying to prevent one. I hope I don't get sued.
Just bring up a hypothetical.
It is a hypothetical.
Would you move to question? Close discussion?
Well, I
Oh,
think you formally need to open the public hearing and then
Yep.
formally.
And I have a question.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So the language, because I heard that if somebody fails, they close their business, that's an action. And here it says if they seek to surrender or cancel, so could it be voluntary or involuntary? Because the action is on the person who holds it it says they seek to give it up. So if it's involuntary, like their business fails, does this still apply?
So I'll read it again, but then it kind of answers. If a provisioning center obtains a marijuana retailer permit, which 5 have, and then seeks to surrender or cancel, so they seek to surrender or cancel its provisioning center permit, the number of authorized provisioning centers allowed in the city shall be reduced by that number. So if they take an action to cancel it, then we reduce the total number.
Okay.
You're asking if they go out of business?
Yes. And
Yeah, it doesn't speak to that. So how I read that is if somebody seeks to cancel their specifically provisioning center, it reduces the total number.
Okay.
If I'm reading that specifically, and I'm not Dan Christ, if a business closed, they didn't seek to cancel their provisioning center, the whole, both sides left, I would think both would be open to apply if one opened up.
Okay. And
He might say no, but that's how I would read it.
that's because the action is on the person requesting to cancel it, and then if it's not their action, but it comes available, I just wondered, I know I'm splitting hairs, but I guess the question is, would they remain together?
I would,
Or could they be?
well, they're separate, but I would think that somebody, it's like somebody after both expired, I'm sorry, if the business went out, somebody then, if we opened both of them up, someone could come in and say, I just want the retailer license. I mean, we couldn't make them take the medical. But if they wanted both, I would think both are open to be taken. It's a very specific read of that. I can ask Dan and email the group.
It just looked like it was on the person to cancel it and not like, are they available the other way around? So, okay.
I can clarify.
Interesting, if I may through the chair. See, I would see it that if they went out of business, that's a choice, you know? They're choosing to go out of business.
Different than I want to give up my provision, you're right, it's in totality. But I think what I can do is get clarification from Dan, and then since it'll be coming forward to council, that can be a question to clarify.
And maybe maybe it can be, maybe something to spring up with Dan is, if the intent is, if they obtain a retailer permit and seek to keep the retail permit, and then seek to surrender its, or cancel its provisioning center, I think at that point, you're kind of closing the going out of business loophole. Or like if someone wants to close down both shops, and then, if someone just closes down both their retail and their provisioning, and that both retail and provisioning then are up for grabs. But if someone wants to, with the way that this reads is, if they close down their retail, and then by default, they also close down their provisioning permit, and just by going out of business, then the provisioning number then drops at that point, but the retail number stays the same. Is that a fair reading?
Through the chair, I would actually argue that the wording doesn't take into account, it doesn't have that issue if like a business were to go out of business. Like, the way I'm reading it is, you're obtaining a retailer permit, then you're choosing to surrender the provisioning permit. So it's separate, so you're keeping that, and you're surrendering that. I'm not reading it as you're obtaining them, and then you seek to surrender or cancel both of them. So the idea of a business going out of a business closing, they would have to surrender both, which that's not what it's saying. It's saying I'm getting the retailer permit, and I'm saying I'm surrendering just this one. So most likely it's a viable business, and they're just choosing to surrender the one permit, and that's when it gets reduced. That's how I'm reading it.
That's how staff's reading it. I'll confirm tomorrow with Dan and tighten that language so it's clear on, but if you're closing both, it wouldn't apply. And then I'll follow up with everybody and send them what his take was. But then I think Councilor Pollica can put on his radar when it comes to council to ask. It doesn't appear like anybody cares either way. It's just you want to close the loophole.
Yeah, just make the intent read a little bit stronger within the ordinance change. So, because if we have questions, then there could be another lawyer who could be trying to exploit the loophole of the vague wording. That if we see vague wording, someone else could try to exploit that.
Me to the chair, it sounds like the intent is that there's 6 facilities in the city, and that they don't want to go more than 6. And so if a provisioning and retail goes away, then that's a possibility for that entity to come back in the city. But if it's just a provisioning, it reduces by 1.
Yes.
That's sort of my understanding.
Correct. That's the goal.
And I can see where the wording is there, but it's also not super clear, I would argue. But I mean, I'm also not a lawyer, so. Let me open this up for public comment at 6:55 p.m. and close public comment at 6:55 p.m. Not seeing anyone in the room.
So through the chair, what are you looking for then tonight? Is this a motion to put it towards give it to the city council? Oh, let's see here.
Yep.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve of the zoning text amendment to section 24-165, medical marijuana facility provisioning center, marijuana retailer and safety compliance facility as written in the document.
Support. Azar.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hagfors and support by Commissioner Nazar. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Okay, I move to a roll call vote.
Sorry. Councilor Pollica.
Yes.
Commissioner Hagfors.
Yes.
Commissioner Brazen.
Yes.
Commissioner Ozar.
Yes.
Commissioner Moshelli.
Yes.
And Commissioner Schulter.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. moving on to administrative items, are there any administrative items to bring up?
Just one that I want to pull up. I sent council an email today. Thought it was really good. So if you recall, for the zoning code rewrite, we did a lot of public engagement related to 4 topics. When we got done with that, we felt like there could be one more last push for community engagement. So we sent out 500 letters randomly to, someone here may have gotten one, I don't know, to residents of Ferndale, proportionally based on the quadrant. So we sent out a letter that said, we're doing the code rewrite, we'd love for you to participate. Here are 4 QR codes for these community engagements. Interestingly, we tracked those who did the survey before we sent them out and after. So for housing diversity, before we sent it out, we had 23 responses. Now we have 75, an increase of 52. Downtown design before was 34, now it's 111, an increase of 77. Equity was 11 before, 50 after, an increase of 39. And sustainability was 2 before and 46 after, for 44 people, more people surveying. For that one, it came, that survey was uploaded towards when we sent that letter, so it wasn't out there a long time, so I'd probably disclaim that one a little bit. But essentially, it appears like we garnered, if you count each one, because you didn't have to participate in each one, you could do any of them, but if you participate in any one of the 4, we got 212 more responses. So I think that was a good letter to send out. We're going to go through the results so far of that. I think next week with McKenna. Generally, they said nothing stands out. It's kind of the consistent themes we've heard from the community engagement. So that's a good thing. But I just wanted to point that out. And then I don't know if anybody wants to talk about the joint workshop, but I think that was a good conversation. McKenna took lots of notes. We've regrouped with them. We have some upcoming meetings with them. Steering committee meeting has been pushed off till October 31st, to give more time. We're supposed to get a draft maybe like October 15th, and then we will make some red lines, give it back to them, clean it up a little bit, and then get it to the steering committee, I think, for our steering committee meeting on Halloween we're having. So just a little update for everybody on the code rewrite.
Thank you. Are there any commission items? No, it looks like Sam this is Sam's first planning commission meeting, so yeah, welcome to the planning commission.
Thanks.
Want to do a quick introduction?
Yeah.
Everyone, or
Actually, maybe
if it's helpful, just to know.
maybe just Sam can give an introduction of himself and tell him where he comes from and what he can bring to the commission.
Sure. As I mentioned at the city council meeting, I'm a 16-year resident of Ferndale, former zoning board of appeals member about 10 years ago or so. And I'm an architect with Fanning Howey Associates. Just opened the Michigan office here for Fanning Howey. Based here in Ferndale. Sole employee in Michigan at the moment. Yeah, glad to be able to serve the city again.
Great. Well, welcome. Do we all want to just do a brief introduction?
Hi, Sam. We used to be coworkers, and
On the record.
I've been on the forever, and it's really a good addition to have you on board, so welcome.
Architectural community is small. Sam, Deb Friesen, resident 20 years, planning commission for
Around the same, forever.
Yeah,
Well,
forever. Nice to have you on board.
Went to school with you.
That's what, yeah. Right.
Sam, I worked with you for a while and been a planning commissioner since 2017 with a few years of break here, maybe earlier, I don't know. But yeah, architect, but
Sam, I have not worked with you, and I'm not an architect. So I am actually the director of planning for the CATA bus system up in Lansing. So if you've ever been up to MSU, you would have ridden probably one of my buses. I've been in Ferndale for 10 years and still live here as my residence. Don't want to move away ever. And I've been on the planning commission now for 2 years, 3 years? Started during COVID, so it was all a blur, but yeah.
One long year.
Yeah, exactly.
Greg Pollica, I've been a resident of Ferndale since 2002, so 21 years. I was elected to council in 2013, so I'm on my 10th year. And this is my 4th year as council liaison to the Planning Commission. And I have no architectural background, but I have a lot of opinion.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Any other commissioner items? Okay, well, that being said, I'm going to close down the meeting at 7:02 p.m. And thanks.